welcome back to the channel, everybody. So it's Sunday, September 24th, just about 2:30 in the afternoon, and I'm out here again for another weekly inspection. So if you've been watching the channel for some time, you'll recognize very quickly that I'm definitely out in the bee yard much later in the day than I usually am, and there's a few reasons behind that I'll explain real quick. So we've had some cold weather move through to where 9, 10 in the morning, or actually 8 in the morning, it's still relatively cold. In fact, we had a few days last week that were in the 40s at sunrise. Not that you would really be able to tell by the activity and the weather right now. So it's actually 84 degrees and the humidity is right around 49 or 50%, to where the heat index is at 85 degrees and it feels fantastic. One of the reasons for this inspection was really to focus on the hive in the third position, which is pretty hard to see from here. But last week, its activity on the front porch wasn't really all that great. And then when I got into the hive, it seemed like they had a little bit of a honey bound situation going on, which may be one of two factors. One, the bees bringing in the natural resources now that the goldenrod's blooming, and two, I could have been compounding that issue because I was feeding them sugar water very religiously, almost on a weekly basis, with maybe 1 week that I missed. Speaking of that, I am actually not feeding them this week, any of the hives, for that very reason, because the goldenrod is definitely in bloom, and the bees are bringing in a ton of it because you can really smell it. I wish smell-o-vision was a thing, because the bee yard has a way different smell than usual. So let's get into the hives and see how they're looking. I'm still kind of torn whether or not I want to get into all of them. I might, if I do, I'll do it briefly, or I might just focus on the hive in the third position and see if they've kind of recovered from any sort of issue, if I can identify that at all. But although hard to tell from here, I'll put my veil on so I can get closer and show you all the front entrance of all the hives. Hive 1 has a lot of nice activity. It looks like some orientation flights going on right outside the front porch, so that tells me some new bees have been hatching. Hive 2 seems kind of normal. 3 has more activity than usual. 4, 5, and 6 are the strongest, and then the hive in the last position here, if you didn't watch last week's video, you may notice, or if you watched the previous video, you may notice that they now have a medium box, which came from the hive in the 6th position. And I moved the top hive feeder over to this one from hive number 2, I believe, because they were kind of getting pretty fat on food stores. So because the hive in the 7th position here has been doing so well, and they had a ton of brood, capped brood that should probably be hatched by now, I wanted to give them some extra feed, hoping the queen would use that, really stimulate her and ramp up the colony's numbers. But anyway, longer introduction than usual. Let's get into some of the hives, see how they're looking. I think I'm gonna focus on 3 still, because in comparison to the rest of the colonies, the front porch activity on the hive in the 3rd position is a little less than the others. But anyway, that may mean something, that may mean absolutely nothing. All right, thanks for watching. Let's get into the hives and see how they're looking for the week. Quick look at 1, pretty nice activity. 2, not terrible, a little less than 1 in comparison. 3, that's what I was saying in the introduction. Not much activity from today as we look at it, and yesterday, I believe, or the day before, probably yesterday, which was Saturday, when we had the colder weather. And the rest look good. So what I'm thinking about doing is popping the top on number 2, checking their food stores, getting down and conducting a regular inspection, and then especially 3, because I don't think I found the queen last week, but I have found her recently. So if it wasn't last week, it may have been the week before. And if it's the queen I'm thinking about, very dark, smaller in size, especially in comparison to the rest of the colonies. So she might be on her way out, or just aging out, getting old. But I don't recall the bees making a lot, if any, queen cups. Definitely no queen cells. So anyway, that's what I'm thinking. Get into the hive in the third position to really just give them some extra attention this week. The rest of the colonies are looking good from the front porch activity, and especially from inspecting them last week. And what I'm also trying to do is not get in the colonies as frequently on a weekly basis, maybe turn it into a bi-weekly basis at this point, just so I'm not disturbing them as much, because every single time you get into your colony, you're disrupting their natural order of things, and whether or not you can see it, it does create some kind of setbacks. So what I'm trying to do is not create any more issues than the ones that I have currently, but because number 3 is on my mind and the front porch activity basically matches up with what I saw last week, I really want to see if they freed up more space down in the brood chamber, because again, like I said earlier, they were what I would determine basically really starting to get into a honeybound situation. So yeah, let's just do that. And that's hive number 1. They're just in the third position. So that's what this video is going to be. It's going to be a weekly inspection of hive number 1. And I might continue to do that until they recover and start looking normal per se, like the rest of the hives, to where the center of the brood box, the deep box, is primarily the brood's nest, frames and frames of brood, and then the outside is your food stores. So really long introduction, a lot on my mind, but let's get into number 1 and see if they're looking any better this week. All right, let's give them some smoke. Pop the top, see what we're looking at here. All right, I'm pretty sure this is the colony that had, or maybe I think that was number 2 as I say it. I was gonna say had the top hive feeder, but I think that was the one next to it. All right, I'm just gonna let the camera roll since I'm really just getting into the one colony this week. So I'm checking for stuff I don't usually look for in great detail, which are the condition of the wings. So there's not a lot of bees on the front porch, but I don't know if the camera's going to pick up on this. There's a decent amount of bees hanging out in between the frames. So let's see what that means. As I start to pull some frames. Outside frames don't look like they have a lot going on, which it's not terrible. I mean, some of the other colonies are definitely filling up the entire medium box as a food store and slight extension of the brood chamber, but if some hives aren't, it's not the end of the world. So they are actually doing a nice job. This is the 4th frame. Nice job creating food stores in the top box. I mean, so far. Here's the center frame. That has some weight to it. Actually, that's really nice. Food stores. And same thing with the next frame. So maybe skipping a week feeding them was not a bad idea, just to give the colony some time to move some food around, because they'll do that. It's kind of what you hope for if you think you have a honeybound situation going on with more nectar than you would prefer in the brood's nest. You give them some space, hoping they'll move some food stores around, and it looks like they have. That'd be a nice frame for the queen to extend the brood chamber into, but there are absolutely no eggs on that frame. Alright, first frame, pretty light, natural comb, which gives them plenty of space to work. I have a feeder in this, if you can't see that, so this bottom box is being ran as an 8 frame. Alright, so this is the second frame. A lot of food, nice pollen stores. Grab my flashlight just because I can't see in this older dark comb. Alright, no eggs, which is fine because that was the outside. Alright, we have some capped brood surrounded by pollen, some nectar maybe. Yeah, this is what was on my mind before I came out here. So there's like small patches of capped brood, but then it's really surrounded pretty heavily by pollen and nectar. We got some drones, but the open cells where you would think the queen would lay some eggs, there are not any. And speaking of, yeah, this is the queen I was thinking about. She's really small in size, so her days might be bottom left corner. You should see her right there, kind of an old dot. So her days might be somewhat numbered, which I'm really surprised. I'm surprised the bees haven't replaced her yet. That's interesting. There's a few I'm looking at within a 1 square inch area. I'm looking at 2 cells that have 2 eggs in it. The surrounding cells have 1 egg, which is what you want to see. Alright, so that might just be a bit off, but that's only right there. So let me see if I can. Okay, so right where my light is, that area right there, there's 2 cells that have 2 eggs. The surrounding cells have 1 egg, and then it just stops. The rest of these cells that are open, you would think you would find eggs throughout, but that is not the case. So I just flipped the frame around as you saw. Same thing on this side. All of these cells that are open, no eggs. Alright. And so far, very minimal capped brood as well. I'm starting to think I might have to kill this queen, and that'll be a first for me. I'm not one to do that at all, but this colony's not looking great. No real capped brood, not much of anything going on. So I think what I might do, I might open up another colony that is doing well, which is probably number 6 or 7, and move a few frames around. Yeah, in fact, I think that's what I'm gonna do. So I'll do that off camera. I'm gonna get into one of the stronger colonies, 6 or 7 down there, find their queen, isolate her, and then move maybe 2 or 3 frames of eggs for sure, because I think I'm gonna kill this queen in hive number 1 in the 3rd position, and then give them some time to raise a new queen and see how that plays out. All right, let me do that, and I'll show you what I'm up to after I've done a few things here. All right, down here at hive number 6, just took the top box off, quick first look. But yeah, I'm gonna grab 2 frames from number 6 that have eggs and some capped brood and some larvae, and move that down to hive number 3. Yeah, this is one of the reasons I decided to come down to hive number 6 and try and find 2 frames from them that I could steal. I'm not going to take this one because this has a lot more cap brood than I want. I definitely want a frame that has a lot of eggs so the queen, or so the bees can raise their own queen. But I just wanted to show you, this is why I came down to this colony, because I remember them being extremely strong and the queen having a very nice egg pattern. Alright, change of plans. So because I was not able to find hive number 6's queen, I'm going to move down to hive number 7. Their queen, I've been very successful with finding her over the last few weeks, and she's very easy to find because she's rather large and marked, newly marked. So I'm going to get into hive number 7. Hopefully I can find her and then continue with my plan with taking 2 of their frames, maybe 3, and moving them down to hive number 1 in the 3rd position. And since I'm getting into them, I guess I could show you some first looks as well. Whoops, just like all the other colonies. So it looks like these bees have continued to use the feed. Yeah, they used all the feed in the top feeder over the last week. And I have no doubt they probably drained the division board feeder. Alright, so that's the plan. Find the queen, move 2 frames that contain a nice amount of eggs and young larvae, maybe some cap brood, down into hive number 3 there. Alright, just wanted to share a first look at hive number 7. Just saw another drone. Yeah, more drones in the colonies this time of year, which is kind of odd because their time should be rather short. Alright, this is the 4th frame out of 8, so dead center. That's one of the reasons I wanted to come down to number 7 if number 6 didn't work out. I mean, look at that, solid brood frames. So I really just want to find the queen, like I've said a few times, cage her, and then see if I can rob them of at least 2 frames that have eggs. Young eggs too is what I'm looking for. Alright, she might actually be in the top box because I just removed the top box and set it aside. So let me check that. Alright, well this is a bit odd. So I couldn't find hive number 7's queen either. Number 6 and number 7 could not find their queen at all. There's signs that they're queen right, but they are both doing an extremely well job of evading me this week. So my plan is on change number 3, which might be getting into hive number 1 and number 2, just to find a few frames to drop into number 3, or I might just put 3 back together, release that queen, and check on them next week, because this week is not going as planned so far, and I'm not trying to be out here all afternoon. So I'm going to think about what I want to do as I put number 7 back together, and we'll see what that looks like here shortly. Alright, last change to this week's plans. I'm down at hive number 1. If I can't find what I'm looking for down here, I'm just going to call it a day. So I'm going to smoke them, get into them, and we'll see what that looks like here in a second. Again, looking for about 2 frames I can rob to put into number 3. Put 2 frames from number 3 over into number 1. First isolate the queen and then do all that. So we'll see what happens here in a second. Alright, well, I hate to say it, but this week did not go as planned, or today did not go as planned at all. If this is baseball, that would be 3 strikes, so I'm out of here. So I checked hive 6, 7, and number 1 for queens. Well, I tried to find the queen first so I could isolate them, and then I was going to move or remove 2 frames containing eggs, pupa, or larva, and capped brood, move them over into hive number 3 to really give them a boost, because they are really lacking brood in any phase. There's small patches of cap brood, like very small patches, as you may have saw if I got that on camera. Not many eggs at all. So this queen, I believe she's on the way out. but today did not go as planned at all. So I was unable to find any queen in any of those 3 hives that I mentioned. This hive's been open the entire time. You can hear this. These bees are definitely getting agitated. So I'm gonna put them back together, release hive number 1's queen into the top box, box them up, and call it a day. This has to be by far the worst time, the worst inspection I've had in a very long time. Definitely this year, probably well into last year, maybe the year before. I'm usually pretty successful at finding queens and doing the things that I say I'm gonna do, but today, I don't know if it's being out here later in the day because the sun is now, you know, basically on its way to setting in a few hours, different light. So I don't know, that's kind of messing with my eyes, but yeah, anyway, I'm gonna put number 1 back together and call it a day. I'll show you the releasing of the queen, and that'll be it for me. All right, let's get her released and get out of here for the day. Is that her? Yeah, where's she at? There she goes, right there. All right, the only thing I can hope is, I don't know, maybe she gets her act together and kicks it into high gear over the next week. I really doubt it, but we'll see. All right, well, that was a pretty interesting time in the bees. Despite what I said in my introduction, I pretty much did the opposite. My plan was to get into hive number 3, and really hive number 3 alone, check on their health, maybe get into another hive if they needed a boost, which they did, and that's exactly what I did. And getting into 1 additional hive turned into getting into 3 additional hives, of which I could not find any of their queens. All the signs that they're queen right, but I could not find any of their queens, which was really odd to me, especially number 7 here. Their queen is large, newly marked, easily found every other time, every other week, except, go figure, this time when I really need to find her. But nonetheless, the rest of the colonies, I mean, not that I was trying to get into them, but 7, 6, I didn't get into the 5th hive, which is hive number 3 at all. But number 1 in the 3rd position, that was the one that I had plans to really give them a boost, which I did not. So I'm just gonna have some patience, give it until next week, and see if they improve at all, and just continue this plan next week. Yeah, it's always interesting when you really want to do a few things or specific things. Sometimes the bees have other plans, and this week those plans were not finding any of the queens that I wanted to find so I can move some frames over. But hey, anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. Stay tuned. Check out the next video, which will be next weekend. Same thing, I'll check on hive number 1 in the 3rd position, see if they're doing any better. I highly doubt they will be. So this plan will roll over to next week. And then next week will be a full in-depth inspection of all the hives. I'll probably feed them some more just because it can't hurt. People say if they need it, they'll use it, they'll take it, and if they don't need the feed, they won't touch it because they're getting food and nectar from natural resources. All right, that does it for me. That was way more than I planned on doing when I came out here. But thanks for watching, everybody, especially if you're still watching the video. Not the most exciting in comparison to previous weeks, but sometimes it's necessary to do unexciting things with the bees. Please subscribe, share with your friends and family. If you like the video, hit the thumbs up, and if you ring the bell, you'll receive notifications when we post new videos. which at this time of year is twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays. Mondays being the preview and Thursday being the actual weekly inspection video. All right, thanks for watching, everybody.